Hey everyone, it's Dr. DeCubellis with Main Street Chiropractic. Today I am here with Sabrina Glover. Thank you for being here.
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Doctor, for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And I wanted to have her by because I really want to talk real estate. A lot's happened in the real estate market in the last year. Very interesting stuff. So I wanted to kind of have an expert here to talk about that. But first, before we get to any of that, tell me a little bit why real estate for you?
Yes, so I got my license 6 years ago as I was living downtown. Really started as just kind of a side hustle to make additional income. It was interesting. I never thought I would be doing real estate, although I do come from 4 generations worth of real estate, which I'm really proud of. But immediately when I started selling, I knew it was a passion. I fell in love. I love helping people, just the whole process. I immediately fell in love and knew I wanted it to be a full-time career for me.
Great, and it definitely, you get to help people on that next chapter of their life, whether it's selling or buying. You get to be part of that, and
It's so fun.
Yeah, that's great. That being said, we got thrown a big loop last year. So with real estate, when COVID happened, a lot of things started to change. When would you say you started to notice a change? Was it last March? Was it before? Was it after? When would you say things started to change?
Immediately. I mean, right when it hit in March, I think all agents, including myself, had no idea how it was going to affect the industry. And it really did, it completely flipped upside down. I mean, the way we were doing showings, open houses, realtor tours were both canceled for really March, April, May. I believe it was not until June that really we were able to start having open houses again. So really the way we conducted our business was completely different. People were scared. People weren't wanting, strangers coming into their house in the masses. So it really just overall changed. And really for those, I would say March through the summer was dramatically different. With that being said, this year's been insane. So it's kind of, really all of 2020 though, although it was different, people were still making moves. So I mean, all of last year was still a great year for real estate.
Well, and that's one thing that's really interesting if we look at, because it used to be the old way of the selling the house process kind of just disappeared. It used to be you list a house, you have to do showings, or you do an open house, and now we hear things to where like houses, when they get listed, they're selling so quickly, not even being seen or walked through. And I think a lot of that probably had to do, and you tell me, but there probably wasn't as large of a number of houses on the market, correct?
Especially this year. Inventory is way down. I mean, it's definitely a seller's market this year. In terms of last year with COVID and how that dramatically affected the market, I mean, yes, we were doing a lot more virtual showings. Even prior to, people coming into the house, they would almost preview the house virtually, which kind of eliminated, to me, it made it a little easier, right? Because you kind of eliminated, instead of seeing 8 houses at once, you maybe did some virtual showings, narrowed it down to the ones you really thought were good potentials. But yeah, this year, just with inventory being so low, interest rates are so low, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things of why the houses are flying off the shelf right now. People are moving out of the city, they don't have to commute into work as much, so they have the option really of where they want to live. And interest rates being so low, it's just giving buyers, more buying power, so they're able to buy. So it's just creating definitely a seller's market with just a high demand.
It's very interesting. Now, let me kind of go back to one thing you talked about there with kind of the changes with the virtual walkthroughs and people seeing any of that new ways of buying that kind of happened or became more in the forefront during COVID. Do you see any of that changing or being here to stay with the way selling houses?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in addition to just virtual showings, we saw the private listing network really being utilized. So the private listing network is a segment of the MLS that only agents have access to. And I really think that, typically in the past, it's always been a coming soon for listings, right? They're not quite ready to list. They're still decluttering, painting, whatever. So they would go into the private listing network until they're ready to list, until they're ready for professional photos and to list. But with COVID, you know, and even I think non-COVID, so something that's going to stay for now, people that just don't want as much traffic, they may go into the private, so only the real serious buyers, you know, are going to be seeing their houses, right? It's not going out to the public.
Right.
So it's just less maybe traffic coming through their house. The listing agent can maybe kind of vet the buyer coming in a little bit more. So yeah, I think there's things that went into effect during the last year with COVID that are going to be here to stay moving forward.
And that makes sense too, especially because they can, like you said, they can almost like pre-screen and make sure it kind of eliminates the need for those open houses. Because I know that's one thing when you're trying to sell a house, you hate having to clean all the time for people to come in and do all these different showings. So if you can take away that burden, it just makes it so much easier for you to sell.
Absolutely. And even now, some of the homes that are making it to market, because we're seeing a lot of homes even sell in the private listing market, so not even all the homes are making it to the active listing. The standard MLS is what we're calling it now. You'll try to book a showing and the whole weekend's booked up. Like you'll go, the one that's been on the market for 2 days, the whole Saturday's booked up, and you're having, so it's getting difficult to actually schedule for these buyers.
And now one thing too that I've been hearing is, with these houses selling so fast, some of them going for over ask, how has that been working when it comes to comps for people having to try to get a loan with the mortgage rates being low? Has that had any effect, or has that been difficult? What have you noticed with that?
I try to just with all my buyers, just set the expectation. I feel like I'm the type of realtor, I more so want to just be their consultant, educate them on the process. I'm not the type of agent that says you have to come in at this price, or if you don't go in at this price you're not going to get it. I really just want them to feel educated on the market analysis of that particular home that they're interested in. And if we're in a multiple offer situation, which is very likely these days, I really just give them the comps and say, what do you feel comfortable with? And if that's going over, what is your comfort level with that? And I just explain, based on these comps, sometimes, yes, it may not appraise out. And really it just comes back to them. They can either, bring the difference to closing if they want. They can ask the seller to reduce to the appraised value, which has always been the go-to. I mean, in any other market, in any other year, you would just ask the seller to come down to the appraised value. But in this market, which is very similar to, after having conversations with other agents, the California market, the Arizona market, I mean, what we're seeing now is what they've been seeing. And so sometimes it's appraisal waivers, just asking the buyer to waive that appraisal if they feel comfortable and if they can, right? Sometimes financially buyers can't. They only have so much in savings, and the other option would be to adjust the down payment percentage. I have one right now, they were going to put 25% down, now they're only going to put 20% down because it was a multiple offer situation. It didn't appraise out, but they love this house. They don't want to lose the house, and that's the hard part is, you don't want, as a buyer's agent, you don't want your buyers to feel like they're overpaying for a house. And typically that's what that means, right? If it doesn't appraise out. But when you think about it, if there's that much demand, right? They're not the only, it was a multiple offer situation, because really that's the only time we're seeing it is in these multiple offer situations. So if there's multiple offers, so many people are willing to pay over that listed price or potentially the appraised price, it's really not overpaying. It's just the supply and demand of it. So it's just making sure that your buyer feels comfortable, that they can do it financially, right? And I just always put the ball in their court. I give them the facts. This is what, the current market is saying, right? And I think when I pull comps, right now especially, I'm trying to keep it as close to now as possible. Because if we go a full 12 months back or even 9 months back, it was a different market than what we're in.
Yeah, and part of that goes to just the whole problem sometimes with finding comps, because the comps that they use for appraisals are not necessarily comparable to the house they're buying. And that, that can happen a lot of times,
Yeah.
especially because just with, like you said, not as many houses being on the market. Are you going to look at a house that was sold 3 years ago because it just doesn't make sense?
No, and I think as a listing agent, just meeting with the appraiser as they're doing their appraisal and explaining. I mean, I think as a listing agent, telling that appraiser, hey, we had 12 offers on this place, or I mean, we're seeing crazy things right now, like 20 offers, going 20 grand over ask and still not getting the property. I mean, it is a little crazy, but it's just kind of, again, the supply and demand, and yeah, it's crazy. It's fun though.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of those things that's different, because even if you look at like new construction homes that are being built, the cost of those are skyrocketing just because of the cost of lumber. So if you look at like, okay, well, if I was going to build this home, a comparable home, the cost would be significantly higher.
Absolutely.
But I'm assuming, I guess, with the appraisals, it's going to take a while for them to kind of catch up and get there, because I don't know, just because that's the way they work. And especially with appraisals, a lot of times they're doing the same thing. They're not even looking in the houses, they're doing drive-by appraisals.
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, it depends sometimes, like how much the buyer's putting down, and sometimes the appraisers are so busy, it's their schedule. So it is a little frustrating when they do the drive-by. I wish I could convince all the appraisals. I mean, because really they don't know all the updates that have been on the inside,
Right.
and even craftsmanship and just the way a home is built. I mean, that all should be taken into consideration. You can't really see that from the outside.
And it's really interesting, yeah. And it's interesting the way that you mentioned that, because while they are so busy, yes, there aren't as many houses on the market, but because the rates are so low, we've got everyone refinancing, which has more than made up for the lack of inventory. So they are busy doing all of that stuff. So it's a very interesting kind of phenomenon that's going on in real estate, because just the rates are so low. Everyone wants to take advantage of that, because like you said too, when it comes to overpaying, okay, maybe you pay $20,000 more for the house than you expected, but with the rates being so low, you're going to more than save that in a 15 or 20 or 30 year mortgage.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting dynamic. So let me ask you this: when do you see more inventory to start to come? When do you think we'll start to get kind of back to somewhat of a normal inventory in the real estate?
I really can't imagine this sustaining for too much longer, I will say. What's so interesting is, I obviously keep a very close eye on the market every single day, and every day homes are getting listed. So it's not that homes aren't getting listed. I mean, I keep an eye. It's always like at least 4 to sometimes 10 a day. So it's just more the amount of buyers that are out there, I think. So, I mean, I could imagine this sustaining through the summer. I think that as we enter the fall season, it's going to slow down as it always does, fall into winter. And I'm hoping by next year it's not as, because although it's fun for me and I love being busy, I feel bad for my buyers when, they're putting in strong offers and they're not getting it.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully by next year we're just a little more stable.
And it shows a lot too, just with having so many people wanting to buy and having such a strong buyer presence, that we didn't lose too much economy-wise with COVID, I guess is one way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is amazing. Yeah, people are still in good positions, and again, they've got savings, they're putting in strong offer. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing too is, even when house prices go up and it's a seller's market, if you're selling your house and then buying it, it doesn't really matter what market it is, you're going to either gain or lose on one end of it.
Right.
So very interesting. I mean, the whole real estate thing is so interesting, especially when you not only can talk about like just buying for yourself, like we've been talking about today, but once you start getting into even like some of the investors, it's a whole other game. So we could talk about this for hours. But thank you very much for coming by. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you would want to mention before we go?
I mean, I just, although it's busy, and I would just say to anyone out there, I mean, I'd love to work with you. I mean, I really love what I do, You know, sometimes it's long days, but I just have such a passion for it. I think, you know, being a 4th generation, it's just in my blood. So I really, you know, enjoy working with both buyers, sellers. I really love taking the time to explain the process to all my clients, and I think that's, in this market with it being so crazy, it's just, you know, finding the right agent that is gonna be aggressive and on top of things, get you into that home fast. You know, I think, you know, if you're just gonna lose out if you don't have the right agent. So to everyone out there, call me up.
And I'm gonna, her contact information is listed below, so you can give her a call, shoot her an email, go to the website, whatever's gonna be the easiest, get in touch with her. It's all down below. So thank you for coming out. Very informative. Like I said, I'd love to talk hours about this stuff. It's so interesting. But we'll stop it there. So again, yeah, thank you for coming out. It's fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you.